The sun was slipping behind the dunes of the Kalahari when Ethan Cole realized he'd wandered farther from his truck than he meant to. The air shimmered with heat still rising from the earth, and every breath tasted of dust. He knelt in the sand, his hands trembling around the tiny, blood-matted lion cub he'd just pulled from a narrow crack beneath a fallen slab of rock. The cub's ribs fluttered beneath his palms, too fast, too weak, and Ethan felt his own heartbeat slam against his ribs as if trying to match it. Then a shadow moved. Not the long shadow of the evening, something heavier, something alive. From the crest of the nearest dune, a massive black-maned lion appeared, its golden eyes locked directly onto the small life Ethan was holding. The animal's chest rose and fell with a slow, deliberate rhythm, each breath a warning. The dry wind pushed its mane sideways, making it look even larger, older, and infinitely more dangerous. Ethan didn't move. He couldn't. One wrong twitch, and he knew the lion would cover the distance between them in seconds. He whispered, barely audible even to himself, "Easy, easy boy." But the lion wasn't looking at him. It was looking at what he carried. The cub gave a weak, broken mewl, and something in the father's expression shifted. Not softened, wild creatures don't soften, but clarified, as if the lion was recognizing the scent, the shape, the bloodline. Ethan swallowed hard. Every instinct he had screamed the same thing, put it down. But he couldn't, not after what he had seen just hours ago. Not after the brutal trail of claw marks, the torn bushes, and the dried splashes of blood that told the story of a fight the cub was never meant to survive. He tightened his grip, steadying the cub's head. His voice, though hushed, trembled. If you're watching this, if you're listening, and if stories like this, stories where a man finds himself face to face with the raw heart of the wild, speak to you, consider subscribing to Whispering Hearts. Every new subscriber helps us keep bringing real stories that remind us why the world still needs wonder. The father lion took one slow step forward. Ethan's pulse hammered so loudly he thought the lion could hear it. The cub in his arms wheezed again, its tiny body twitching, its claws flexing uselessly against the fabric of Ethan's shirt. He glanced at the horizon, too far from the truck, too far from help. Somewhere in his mind, he remembered a piece of advice from his wilderness training. If a predator is assessing you, don't run, don't bow, don't challenge, just exist. But this wasn't a moment from a safety manual. This was a moment a man had to navigate with instinct alone, the way a driver navigates a sudden skid on a highway, or a homeowner reacts during a midnight break-in, moments when hesitation can cost everything. Those metaphors floated through his head the way stray thoughts do when adrenaline peaks, strange reminders of the world he came from, a world of mortgage payments, home insurance renewals, and car accident attorneys. Ethan slowly shifted his knees in the sand to keep his balance. He didn't blink, didn't breathe deeply. The lion's gaze followed every millimeter of movement. And then, without warning, the lion released a low, thunderous growl that vibrated through the ground and up Ethan's bones. The cub wheezed again, its tiny body twitching, its claws flexing uselessly against the fabric of Ethan's shirt. He glanced at the horizon, too far from the truck, too far from help. With his dying cub in his arms and the king of the desert staring into his soul, Ethan understood the truth. This wasn't the beginning of a rescue. It was the beginning of a reckoning.
The morning had begun with nothing more dramatic than the rattle of Ethan's old enamel mug as he poured the last of his instant coffee. The Kalahari was still cool in those early hours, a brief kindness before the desert decided to remind every living creature who truly ruled here. Ethan stood outside his canvas tent, stretching his shoulders while the rising sun burned a line of gold across the horizon. This was supposed to be his final field day before returning to the United States. Back to his apartment in Denver, back to overdue bills, back to the pile of paperwork his accountant kept emailing him about, including reminders to update his travel insurance and the home security system he'd been ignoring for months. The radio crackled. "Ethan, you awake yet?" Tabo's familiar voice hummed through the static. "Barely," Ethan answered, rubbing the sleep from his eyes. "Today, stay out of the valley. I heard a fight there last night. Lions and hyenas. Bad one." Tabo wasn't the type to exaggerate. If he said a fight was bad, it meant bones had been crushed, lives ended, and the desert gods had collected their share. Ethan nodded, even though Tabo couldn't see him. Got it. But then Ethan's phone, held together by tape and stubbornness, buzzed. An email from his editor in New York lit the screen. "We need something extraordinary for the cover. Raw, unfiltered. If you can't get it today, we may have to reconsider the contract." Reconsider the contract. The polite corporate version of a guillotine drop. Ethan let the words sink in. This assignment wasn't just another trip. It was supposed to be the story that kept him afloat for another year. The one that paid for his sister's treatments back home. The one that let him avoid having to call a personal injury lawyer after the accident that had drained his savings. Photography wasn't a stable paycheck. It was a gamble, like playing the stock market without the benefit of a financial advisor. You survived on instinct and timing, and today, both told him he needed to bring home something more than the same old landscape shots. He glanced toward the valley Tabo had warned him about. The sun was now high enough to expose the reddish dust swirling faintly in the distance. Something violent had indeed taken place there, and violent meant dramatic. Dramatic meant publishable. Ethan slung his battered camera bag over his shoulder. "I'll stay clear of the worst of it," he lied into the radio. "Ethan," Tabo said sharply, "I mean it. The rule is simple. You do not interfere and you do not step into a fresh kill zone. Even rangers avoid it unless necessary." "Understood," Ethan replied, though his eyes had already drifted toward the valley again. He started walking, boots sinking softly into the warming sand. The desert smelled of dry grass and a faint metallic hint, the scent of blood lingering in the air longer than it should. Ethan followed a trail of scattered feathers, broken twigs, and deep prints of lions running at full speed. His heart thudded with a mix of curiosity and the quiet dread of someone who knows he's edging toward trouble, much like a homeowner creeping down the hallway after hearing a strange noise in the middle of the night. Just over a rise, he paused. Before him lay clear signs of the nighttime battle, claw marks gouged into the earth, tufts of golden fur snagged on thorn bushes, and a long drag line leading toward the collapsed rock formation he would discover later. The place felt strangely still, like the air was holding its breath.
Ethan lifted his camera. "Just a few shots," he murmured. "Then I head back." But the desert rarely allows just a few shots. Every step he took deeper into the valley was a step that would lead him, hour by hour, closer to the dying cub, and the father lion who would later confront him on that dune at sunset. And though Ethan didn't know it yet, every shot he took that morning would become part of the story that would change the course of his life and nearly cost him everything he had left. The valley was eerily quiet, the kind of quiet that didn't belong in a place where predators fought for their lives only hours earlier. Ethan stepped carefully over a patch of darkened sand, the coppery smell of dried blood faint but still unmistakable. The sun was climbing higher now, washing the landscape in a sharp yellow light that revealed every detail of what had happened here. He crouched near a deep claw mark carved into the earth. 4 parallel lines, long and savage, cutting straight through the dust like someone had dragged iron nails across the desert floor.
10 feet ahead lay a tuft of golden fur, caught on a thorn bush. Ethan lifted it between his gloved fingers. It was soft, too soft to belong to an adult lion. A cub was here, he murmured under his breath. At least one. The thought unsettled him. Lion cubs weren't supposed to be anywhere near a fight like this. Mothers usually hide them well. If a cub ended up in the chaos of last night, it meant something had gone terribly wrong. He followed the trail, broken shrubs, disturbed sand, and a long drag mark where something small had been pulled or had crawled desperately. Each sign seemed to whisper another fragment of the story. Ethan snapped photos as he walked, framing each shot with the precision of habit. His editor had drilled it into him. Context sells, details sell, suspense sells. In another life, maybe he would have been a crime scene photographer, the way he studied every inch of ground like evidence. A wry smile tugged at his mouth. "Guess those true crime documentaries finally rubbed off on me," he muttered. But the smile faded when he reached the collapsed rock formation. A slab of sandstone nearly the size of an SUV had broken away from the cliffside. Beneath it, the sand told a violent story. Paw prints frantically circling the area, claw marks on the rock where a lioness had clearly tried to dig or pull something free. He knelt, running his fingers along the grooves. "You fought hard," he whispered, imagining the mother lion desperately trying to protect her young. He leaned closer, and then he heard it. A sound so faint it might have been the wind, a weak, muffled whine buried under stone and sand. He froze. The sound came again, barely there, like a tiny breath struggling against the weight of the desert. He pressed his ear to the gap beneath the fallen rock. There, a tremble, a heartbeat, a life. "Easy now," Ethan whispered, his hands already moving. He shoved his backpack aside and crawled on his stomach, pushing his camera gear out of the way. As he worked, something strange washed over him, a sudden sharp awareness that this was no longer about photographs, no longer about contracts or magazine covers or whether he'd have to call a financial advisor next month to deal with his overdue bills. This was simpler, purer. A living creature was fading, and he was the only one here to decide whether it died alone or had a chance to live. He wedged his hands under the rock, feeling the coarse grit grind against his knuckles. The weight was immense. His shoulders trembled. For a second, he wondered if he'd injure himself, if he'd end up needing a medical attorney or a long stay at some hospital back in the States. But he pushed harder, teeth clenched, breath raw, until the slab lifted just enough to slide something out. A tiny paw appeared, then a thin leg, then a small, dust-covered body. The cub. He pulled it gently onto his lap. It was limp, barely breathing, one eye sealed shut from dried blood and sand. Its fur was warm, too warm. Heat stroke, exhaustion, shock. The cub's chest fluttered like a failing engine. Ethan pressed his fingers lightly against its ribs. "Stay with me," he whispered. He reached for his canteen, uncapped it, and dripped a single bead of water onto the cub's tongue. The tiny creature twitched, a reflex, weak but present. Ethan gave it another drop, then another, careful not to flood its mouth. He remembered enough from wilderness rescue courses to know that even water had to be rationed in situations like this. A small body could choke just as easily as recover. As he worked, he glanced back at the collapsed rock formation. The stories etched in the sand took shape now. He understood. The mother lion must have hidden her cub in the shallow crevice during the hyena attack. The slab likely fell during the struggle, pinning the little one while the fight raged. The mother had probably been dragged away, injured or worse, leaving the cub trapped and fading. Ethan's chest tightened. "No wonder the father lion found me last night," he whispered. "You weren't abandoned. You were stolen by the night." He gently lifted the cub into his arms. It was lighter than he expected, its body fragile and frighteningly still. The wind picked up, blowing sand across the valley floor, hinting that the heat was about to intensify. If he stayed here longer, the rising temperature could finish what the rock had started. He stood, adjusting his grip on the cub. "All right, little one, we're getting out of here, I promise." But as he turned toward the open desert, a cold realization struck him like a blow. He had just crossed the line Thabo warned him about. He had interfered, not with a photo, not with a moment, with life itself. And out here, in a place where every action had consequences written in tooth and claw, he had no idea what the cost would be.
The cub lay against Ethan's chest, its breathing thin and erratic, each rise of its ribcage a fragile plea. Ethan hurried across the valley floor, boots sinking into the softening sand as the desert heat grew heavier by the minute. He kept one hand cupped under the cub's head to keep it steady. The other held his water canteen, ready to drip a careful bead onto the tiny tongue whenever he heard the breathing slow. His radio crackled suddenly. "Ethan, you there?" Thabo's voice snapped with urgency, sharper than usual. Ethan swallowed. He shouldn't answer. He knew what Thabo would say. But the cub whimpered, and the sound made him stop walking. He clicked the radio on. "I'm here." "Good. I traced your signal. You're close to the valley floor. I told you to stay away. It's dangerous, especially after last night." "I know," Ethan said, adjusting the cub in his arms. "I'm heading back now." There was a pause, then Thabo's tone changed, becoming low and firm. "Ethan, tell me you didn't touch anything." Ethan closed his eyes. He could lie. He could pretend he saw nothing, touched nothing. But the warmth of the cub against his chest, too warm, dangerously warm, told him he couldn't hide the truth. There was a rock slide. A cub was trapped. It would have died. Silence. The kind of silence that made the hair on Ethan's arms lift. Thabo finally spoke. "You know the rule. We don't interfere, ever. The wilderness has its order. We don't change it. If the authorities find out, your license, your permit, your right to work here, everything is gone." Ethan kept walking. The cub twitched as if hearing the tension in his voice. It was still alive, barely breathing. "I couldn't just walk away." "That's not your call," Thabo snapped. "You break the rule, you break the balance." But the balance, Ethan thought bitterly, wasn't always fair. It wasn't fair when his little sister Emma had been lying on a hospital bed after a car accident, unable to speak, doctors hinting that she might not survive the night. A stranger had intervened then, pulled her from the wreck before the fire spread. If that man had followed the rules, Emma wouldn't be alive today. The memory hit him harder than the rising heat. "Thabo," he said softly, "sometimes rules don't fit the moment. That's not how nature works." "That's exactly how people work," Ethan replied. The radio went silent again. Ethan imagined Thabo pacing at the ranger station, rubbing his temples, weighing protocol against the man he knew Ethan to be. Finally, Thabo exhaled into the mic, a long, defeated breath. "You need to listen to me carefully. If the cub is injured, it might not survive even with help, and if the father is still nearby, he could attack you for touching his young." Ethan tightened his hold around the tiny body. "I won't hurt him. I'm just trying to save what's yours." But the lion did not understand words, only actions, only instinct, only law. And Ethan had already broken that law. The lion on the ridge did not move at first. He stood carved against the sky like a monument the desert had been worshipping for centuries. Golden mane ruffled by the wind, shoulders rolling with slow, deliberate breaths. He was the embodiment of raw, unchallenged power. Ethan felt his heartbeat stumble, then race, his palms slickening against the cub's fur. The cub stirred again, letting out a tiny strained mewl that carried farther than its strength should have allowed. The lion's ears twitched at the sound, his eyes sharpened. He began his descent. Not a charge, not a rush,
something more unnerving. A purposeful, measured walk straight towards Ethan. Sand shifted under each heavy paw as the lion closed the distance with the confidence of a creature that had never once doubted its place in the world. Ethan took a step backward, not running, but adjusting, careful not to make a sudden movement. His mind ran through survival protocols: avoid eye contact, stand tall, don't crouch, don't show fear. Too late for that last one. He swallowed hard, tasting dust and adrenaline. Easy. Easy, boy. I'm not your enemy. The cub whimpered again, weaker this time, its tiny body trembling. Ethan shifted his grip, holding it closer, feeling its pulse flutter like a trapped bird. The action drew the lion's attention, sharp, immediate. The lion stopped 10 yards away, head lowering, muscles tightening in a way that made Ethan's stomach flip. The air between them felt thin, breakable, like one wrong breath might shatter it. Ethan forced himself to speak, though his throat was dry enough to burn. "He's hurt," he murmured. "I'm trying to help." The lion blinked, a slow, heavy blink that somehow made him more terrifying than a roar would have. Ethan could sense the lion evaluating him, not as prey, not as a threat, but as something outside the natural order, a man holding what belonged to him. For a moment, Ethan wondered if prophecy was real, if some unseen hand had dragged him into this valley at this hour. He remembered reading once in a dusty wildlife guide he bought with a credit card during college that lions could distinguish intention by posture. But intention meant nothing if instinct screamed louder. Then the lion did something Ethan never expected. He stepped closer. Not aggressively, but with a kind of solemn acceptance. Ethan's pulse hammered, his boots sunk deeper into the sand. He could feel heat radiating from the cub's small body, feel a death creeping closer with every shallow breath. He knew he was out of time. Okay, we're doing this together. The lion's shadow reached him first, stretching across Ethan's boots like a warning. Then came the scent, earthy, musky, wild. Ethan forced himself not to flinch as the lion lowered his head and brought his muzzle within inches of the cub. The cub, barely conscious, let out a soft chirp. The lion responded with a deep rumbling noise that sounded not anger, but something closer to recognition. His massive head nudged forward, and for one heart-stopping second, Ethan thought he was about to strike. Instead, the lion gently touched the cub's forehead with his nose. Ethan froze. This was not an attack. It was a father confirming life. The lion inhaled deeply, taking in the scent of his offspring, the blood, the dust, and yes, the human who carried him. Ethan felt the warm exhale brush across his hands. The lion's eyes lifted to Ethan's face. It wasn't gratitude, not yet. It was a question, a silent demand. Why are you holding my son? Ethan could not look away. His voice came out barely above a whisper. If I put him down now, he won't make it. The lion did not move, but something shifted in his gaze. Ethan took that moment, small as it was, as permission. He carefully backed up a step, slow, controlled. The lion mirrored him, following with the same slow precision. When Ethan turned toward the dried-out acacia tree, where he'd stopped earlier, the lion followed again, staying close enough that Ethan could feel his presence like a second heartbeat. Together, human and apex predator, they crossed the sand. An impossible pairing that no camera could have captured. Ethan reached a patch of shade and gently laid the cub down on his shirt, folded into a makeshift cushion. The lion lowered himself beside them, massive paws sinking into the soil, teeth glinting whenever the breeze lifted his lips. Ethan kneeled, trying to focus, forcing his hands not to shake. He needed to check the cub's breathing again. He needed to hydrate him carefully. He needed... A growl vibrated through the earth. Not at Ethan. Past him. Ethan turned. A shadow moved behind the rocks. Then another. A pair of eyes reflecting sunlight. The unmistakable shape of a hyena's sloping shoulders. Then a second hyena emerged. And a third. Ethan inhaled a broken breath as the lion rose to his feet, muscles coiling like a storm preparing to strike. The hyenas crept forward, drawn by the scent of blood. The lion beside Ethan let out a sound so deep it rattled Ethan's ribs. The hyenas hesitated, but only for a moment. Then the largest one stepped forward, head low, emitting a mocking cackle. Ethan felt fear grip him like a tightening rope. He crouched in front of the cub instinctively, even though he knew he shouldn't, knew he was no match for predators who saw opportunity in weakness. But the lion stepped in front of him, shielding Ethan, shielding the cub. The hyenas spread out. The lion growled. The desert held its breath. What happened next would mark the moment Ethan's life ceased being ordinary and became something unforgettable.
The lion stood like a wall of muscle and fury between Ethan and the encroaching pack. His mane bristled, the desert wind pushing it back like a burning halo. The hyenas responded with their unnerving chorus, a mix of cackles, chirps, and low grunts that made Ethan's spine prickle. They weren't just scavengers today. They were predators smelling blood, sensing weakness, and testing the limits of their nerve against a lone male lion. Ethan crouched low over the cub, one hand shielding the tiny body, even though he knew it was instinct rather than logic guiding him. There was no world in which he could fight off even one hyena, let alone 4. But the lion didn't move away from him. If anything, the massive cat stepped a half-pace closer, angling his body to cover Ethan entirely. Ethan felt the wave of heat from the lion's flank, a living barrier standing between him and death. The cub whimpered beneath Ethan's palm. That sound, tiny, defeated, heartbreakingly fragile, triggered something primal. The father lion lowered his head and released a roar so deep Ethan felt it in his sternum. The hyenas paused, paws scuffling in the sand. The biggest one, the matriarch, judging by her size, lifted her lips and replied with a guttural whoop, as if challenging the lion's claim. The air thickened, tension humming like power lines. Ethan knew one thing for certain: if this turned into a full fight, he and the cub were done. The lion took 2 steps forward. His muscles tightened so dramatically, Ethan could see individual strands shifting beneath the skin. He let out a second roar, longer, sharper, a territorial warning that echoed across the valley floor. Ethan had heard lions roar before, from the safety of a truck or a distant hill. But this was different. This was a sound directed at death itself. The hyenas faltered, but they didn't retreat. Ethan's mind raced through every wilderness lecture he'd ever heard. Predator hierarchy, territorial behavior, threat displays. None of it mattered. The father lion was outnumbered, and if the hyenas pushed as a coordinated pack, they could overwhelm even him. Ethan felt his breath hitch, heat pressing against the back of his neck. A headache throbbed behind his eyes, dehydration creeping in, reminding him of every travel health insurance brochure he'd ignored when booking the trip. A ridiculous thought given the moment, but the brain clings to strange things when terror tightens its grip. The matriarch took another step. The lion answered by lowering his head, shoulders bulking forward. Then, everything broke loose. The hyenas lunged as one. The lion met them head-on. Sand exploded under their feet as the big cat slammed into the first hyena with bone-crushing force. The creature tumbled sideways, yelping. Another darted toward the cub, and Ethan, without thinking, swung his camera bag out in a wide arc. The bag connected, not hard enough to injure the hyena, but enough to startle it off course.
The animal snarled, snapping its jaws inches from Ethan's leg before the lion barreled into it, teeth flashing. Ethan scrambled backwards, pulling the cub close, heart pounding so hard he felt dizzy. The lion fought like a creature possessed. Every swipe of his paw sent sand flying. Every snarl cut the air like lightning. Two hyenas retreated instantly, limping away from the blows. But the matriarch held her ground, circling, waiting for an opening. Ethan glanced at the cub. Its breathing had grown even weaker. He didn't have hours. He might not even have minutes. He needed to get back to his truck, get fluids, get medical supplies. But he couldn't move until the lion ended this. The matriarch lunged again, going for the lion's hind leg. The lion twisted with terrifying speed and slammed her into the sand, jaws clamping around her shoulder. Her shriek pierced the desert, sharp enough for Ethan to flinch. The remaining hyenas scattered, disappearing behind the dune line. The lion released the matriarch, who dragged herself away, tail tucked, body shaking with defeat. The father didn't pursue her. He simply stood still, chest heaving, mane rippling, eyes burning with victory and warning. Silence returned to the valley, heavy, stunned. Ethan exhaled shakily. The lion turned back toward him. Their eyes met again, but this time something electric passed between them. Not hostility, not suspicion. Recognition. Ethan slowly rose to his feet, clutching the cub. His voice was soft, raw. "He doesn't have long. I need to get him water. Medicine, please." He didn't expect understanding, but the lion didn't block him, didn't growl, didn't close the distance. Instead, the massive creature stepped aside. A gesture so deliberate, Ethan felt goosebumps rise along his arms. Permission, or something like it. Ethan nodded once, breath trembling. "I won't take him away, just long enough to save him." The lion blinked, slow and heavy. Ethan turned, legs weak, and began the long walk back towards the truck. He kept the cub close, whispering encouragement. Each step felt like a test, but behind him, he heard soft, steady footsteps. The lion was following, not hunting, not threatening, escorting. It was impossible, unbelievable, and yet undeniably real. The cub stirred faintly, pressing its tiny head against Ethan's chest. "You're going to be okay," Ethan whispered. "Your father's with us." And for the first time since he discovered the wounded cub in the sand, Ethan truly believed that might be possible. Ethan's legs felt heavier with each step across the burning sand. The cub's breathing had slipped into an unsettling rhythm, too shallow, too slow. Each inhale sounded like it scraped against life itself. Ethan kept one hand on its back, feeling the faint rise and fall, terrified of the moment it might stop. Behind him, the lion walked with measured calm, his presence a pressure Ethan could feel in the air, as if the very desert shifted around them to make room for this impossible alliance. The truck was still a distant glint of metal, heat bending its shape like a mirage. Ethan licked his dry lips, tasting salt and dust, and reminded himself to stay focused. He had a hydration pack tucked under the seat, plus a small first aid kit with electrolyte drops. Not much, but better than nothing. As he walked, he whispered to the cub, hoping the sound of his voice might tether the little creature to consciousness. "You're tougher than you look, buddy. Just hang on. We're almost there." The wind stirred, lifting the lion's mane into a soft golden ripple. Ethan glanced back. The lion wasn't just following, he was guarding, head low, eyes sharp, scanning the dunes on either side as if daring anything else to challenge us. Ethan tried to swallow the lump in his throat. He'd never imagined fear and awe could live in the same breath, but there it was, every second, pressing into his ribs. Halfway to the truck, the cub suddenly jerked in Ethan's arms. A tiny cry escaped it, thinner than before, but urgent. Ethan froze. The cub's small body trembled, then went limp again. Panic surged through him so fast he felt his knees weaken. No, no, stay with me. He knelt quickly, shielding the cub from the sun with his body. Come on, kid. Don't quit on me now. He dripped a bead of water onto the cub's tongue. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the cub swallowed, barely, but enough to spark hope. Ethan exhaled shakily, his heart pounding with the kind of adrenaline he hadn't felt since the night he got the phone call about Emma's accident. That same helplessness, that same desperate refusal to lose someone fragile. He needed shade. Just a minute, just enough to steady his hands. He spotted a cluster of boulders a few yards away, casting a sliver of shadow. Ethan moved toward it carefully, glancing back at the lion, who followed without hesitation. Once they reached the rocks, Ethan sat and laid the cub gently across his thighs. A faint breeze moved through the narrow space, cooler than the open desert. It wasn't much, but it helped. Ethan took a steadying breath and tilted the cub's head to check its airway, just as he'd learned during a wildlife first responder course the Park Service had required years ago. He hadn't expected to ever use the more advanced parts, certainly not like this. He wished he had more equipment, more training, anything. But he had his hands, his will, and a cub that needed both. The lion circled once, then settled on the sand, watching Ethan with an intensity that felt almost human. His amber eyes reflected something Ethan couldn't name, a question maybe, or a silent plea. "It's okay," Ethan murmured. "I'm helping him." He wasn't sure if the lion understood the words, but the tone mattered. Animals felt tone deeper than language. The lion's breaths slowed, though his muscles stayed tense, like coiled steel beneath fur. Ethan reached into his pocket and pulled out a small emergency electrolyte ampule, something he always carried for long hikes. He cracked the seal and let a drop touch the cub's tongue. The electrolyte formula reminded him of the kind you find in high-end health insurance travel kits, marketed to tourists who wanted peace of mind before crossing the world. Ethan had always rolled his eyes at those ads, thinking he'd never need such things. Funny how life puts you in places that make old assumptions look small. The cub twitched, its paws curling slightly, its breathing hitched, and then grew a hair stronger. Ethan felt a surge of relief so intense it almost made him lightheaded. "That's it. Fight. You've got this." A soft rumble vibrated through the ground. Ethan glanced up. The lion had risen. He stepped closer, slowly, cautiously, until his massive head hovered only a foot from Ethan's shoulder. Ethan held perfectly still. The lion sniffed the cub gently. Then Ethan's hands, then the water bottle beside him. His breath was warm and heavy, carrying the scent of earth and wild grass. The lion's gaze lifted to meet Ethan's. Not a threat. A question. A trust half formed, half tested. Ethan nodded. "I'm not hurting him, I promise." The lion blinked once, slow, deliberate. Ethan didn't know why, but that simple blink nearly unraveled him. It felt like the closest thing to approval the lion could give. He lifted the cub again, cradling it against his chest. "I need to keep moving," he said softly, more to himself than to the lion. He stood, stiff from kneeling, The lion stepped back to give him space, then fell into stride beside him as Ethan resumed the trek toward the truck. The sky shimmered, the horizon wavering like a fragile curtain of heat. Ethan's shirt clung to him with sweat, and a dull ache pulsed behind his eyes, warning him he was edging toward heat exhaustion. He breathed through it, steady but strained. "You and me," he whispered to the cub, "just a little farther." The truck grew larger, finally taking solid shape as they approached. Relief washed through Ethan's body, warm, dizzying, almost overwhelming. When he reached the driver's side, he unlocked the door, tossed his backpack inside, and carefully laid the cub on the passenger seat, cushioned with towels. He grabbed his hydration pack, took a slow sip, and wiped his forehead. Then he froze. The lion had followed him all the way to the door of the truck. The massive creature stood only a few feet away, mane blowing gently in the heat, gaze shifting between Ethan and the cub inside the cab. He felt a fresh ripple of awe. No wildlife book, no documentary, no wilderness training had ever described a moment like this. A father lion trusting a human with his dying cub. Ethan rested his hand on the open truck door. "I'm not taking him away. I'm helping him heal." The lion did something that Ethan would remember for the rest of his life. He sat. Not in defeat, not in threat, but like a sentinel, a guardian waiting, watching, choosing faith in the strangest ally imaginable. Ethan swallowed hard, feeling emotions sting unexpectedly behind his eyes. "I'll do everything I can," he whispered. "I swear." And as the desert wind pressed against them and the cub breathed faintly from the seat behind him, Ethan realized this was no longer simply about saving a life. It was about earning a father's trust. A trust he had to prove, one careful breath at a time.
The cub lay curled on the passenger seat, its breaths shallow but steadier than before. Ethan watched its tiny ribs move as he mixed a few more electrolyte drops into a capful of clean water. His fingers trembled from exhaustion, but he forced them to steady. The desert heat had clawed at him all day, drying his mouth, tightening the back of his skull, making his thoughts blur at the edges. He knew he was one bad decision away from heat stroke himself, the kind that filled medical brochures with warnings about the cost of emergency evacuation and the importance of having good health insurance while traveling abroad. It was ironic. He'd always thought those pamphlets exaggerated. Today, he realized they hadn't exaggerated anything at all. He lifted the cap to the cub's mouth and let a drop fall. The tiny creature swallowed, its eyelids fluttering. Ethan felt a rush of hope so sudden it almost took his breath away. "That's it, buddy. Take another." Behind him came the soft scrape of claws shifting against sand. The lion hadn't moved far, just repositioned, lowering his enormous body onto the ground beside the truck, paws stretched forward like a sentinel on duty. His amber eyes never drifted from Ethan's hands. Every time Ethan glanced at him, he felt the weight of that gaze. Not hostile, not trusting either. Something in between, like watching a stranger try to fix what you cannot repair. Ethan poured another droplet for the cub. "Hang on. You fought this far, just a little more." The cub's tail twitched weakly. That small movement filled Ethan with a fragile confidence. He reached for the small gauze roll in his backpack, ready to wrap the abrasion along the cub's side where the rock slide had scraped fur and skin away. But the moment he touched the gauze, the lion let out a low rumble, a warning, soft but unmistakable. Ethan froze.
He lifted both hands slowly. "It's okay," he said quietly. "I'm not hurting him, just cleaning a wound." The lion rose halfway, muscles tightening beneath his golden coat. Ethan felt his pulse spike. He kept his palms up, breathing evenly. "I know you don't understand what I'm doing, but this is how we help. This is how your cub lives." The lion stared at him, head slightly tilted, mane ruffling in the wind. For a moment, Ethan wondered if the big cat would lunge, if instinct would snap back into place, ending everything in a heartbeat. Then the lion's posture softened. Only a little, but enough for Ethan to lower his hands again. The tension eased just enough for Ethan to continue. He dipped the gauze into a bottle of clean water, wrung it out, and gently dabbed the cub's wound. The cub whined quietly, but didn't pull away. Ethan worked slowly, whispering soothing nonsense under his breath, soft words, the kind he used to calm Emma during the worst nights in the hospital. "You're doing great, brave little guy. Stay with me." When he finished cleaning the wound, he wrapped it with a piece of sterile gauze, securing it with a narrow strip of tape. The lion watched every movement, breathing heavy through his nose, but he didn't interfere. Ethan sat back, exhaling. Sweat rolled down his temples, stinging his eyes. He drank from his hydration pack, forcing himself to take slow sips. The world steadied, though the heat still pressed like a physical weight against his shoulders. He looked at the cub. "We're not in the clear, but you've got a chance now." The lion made a sound, a deep exhale, almost like a sigh, and Ethan turned his head. The big cat was now sitting upright again, tail flicking once against the sand. He was restless, expectant. He wants his cub back, Ethan realized. But returning the cub now, weak, dehydrated, barely stable, would mean sending him straight toward death. Ethan's stomach tightened. He had to choose. Give the cub back too soon and undo everything he'd fought for? Or deny a father his child and risk the lion's fury? Neither option felt survivable. He swallowed hard and stepped out of the truck cab, gently closing the passenger door halfway, not locking it, just enough to block direct access. The lion arose immediately, posture alert.
Ethan lifted both hands. "Listen," he said softly, his voice trembling despite his effort to control it. "He's still too weak. If I hand him over now, he won't make it. I need more time, just a little more." The lion's ears flattened. His head lowered. A growl rippled through the air, pushing Ethan back a step. Instinct screamed at him to hide, to run, to do anything but stand exposed under the gaze of a predator who towered over him. But Ethan didn't move. He couldn't. "He needs me right now," Ethan said, voice cracking with emotion he didn't expect. "I know you want him. I know he's your son, but I'm his only chance." For a long, breathless moment, the lions simply stared at him. Their gazes locked, man and beast, caught in a conflict neither wanted but both understood. Then the lion stepped closer. Ethan's throat tightened. He held still, every muscle contracted with instinctive fear. The lion approached until his massive face hovered just inches from Ethan's chest. His breath washed over Ethan, warm and heavy. Ethan could hear the deep thrum of the lion's heartbeat. The lion sniffed him slowly, thoroughly, taking in every scent: sweat, sand, fear, the faint trail of cub fur on his shirt. Then the lion did something Ethan could never have predicted. He gently pressed his forehead to Ethan's sternum, a gesture not of dominance, not of threat, but of acceptance. Ethan's breath caught. Emotion surged unexpectedly in his chest. That simple touch held more meaning than words could hold. It was acknowledgement, permission, a father entrusting his child, however temporarily, to another. The lion stepped back and lowered himself beside the truck, settling in with deliberate calm. His eyes remained fixed on the cub through the partially open door, but he made no move to retrieve him. Ethan exhaled slowly. His legs wobbled and he braced himself against the truck. "Thank you," he whispered. He didn't know if the lion understood, but the desert felt different now. Calmer, warmer, as if the very air had shifted around this impossible truce. Ethan climbed back into the truck, closing the door gently behind him. The cub stirred again as he checked its pulse, its breathing slightly stronger than before. "We're going to get through this," Ethan murmured. "Your dad believes it too." Outside, the lion lay like a golden guardian in the settling heat, watching over them both. And for the first time all day, Ethan felt a glimmer of something fierce and unshakable in his chest. Hope. The sun had begun its slow descent, softening the sky into hazy strokes of amber and rose. The heat loosened its brutal grip, but the desert air still shimmered as Ethan sat behind the wheel, one hand resting near the cub as it slept, finally, deeply. Its breaths were slow, but stronger, its tiny chest rising with more certainty than it had hours earlier. Ethan felt the tension in his muscles ease just a little, though his exhaustion pressed in like a physical weight. Outside the truck, the lion remained seated only a few feet away. He hadn't budged since granting Ethan that improbable permission. His silhouette cut a regal figure against the fading light, mane glowing like embers in a dying fire. Every few minutes, the lion's gaze drifted toward the cub through the cracked door, then back to the desert, scanning, guarding. Ethan wiped a bead of sweat from his forehead. The air finally felt breathable, though his throat remained dry. He forced himself to take a few slow sips from his hydration pack. As the cool water reached his stomach, he realized how close he had come to heat exhaustion. Lightheadedness, headache, that strange ringing behind the ears. The kind of situation that made those emergency medical coverage pamphlets in airports suddenly feel less like marketing, more like prophecy. He shook off the thought. He had no time for what-ifs. The cub needed him steady. The tiny creature stirred, its paws shifting weakly as it sought warmth. Ethan lifted it gently, cradling it against his forearm so it wouldn't panic. "It's okay," he whispered. "You're not alone. Your dad's right outside." The cub gave a faint squeak, almost acknowledging the presence it sensed beyond the steel frame of the truck. Ethan felt something ache in his chest, something protective, heavy, and deeply human. As he checked the gauze around the wound, he heard a rustle outside. The lion had risen to his feet again. Ethan's heart kicked, but the lion didn't approach. He walked a slow, deliberate circle around the truck, pausing every few paces to listen, to scent the air, to make sure nothing threatened what mattered most. Ethan watched in stunned admiration. This wasn't random instinct. This was fatherhood. The lion returned to his place by the passenger door, lowering himself cautiously, still alert. The sky dimmed as dusk deepened. The horizon shifted from gold to violet. Shadows stretched long across the desert floor. Ethan felt unease crawl into his thoughts. Hyenas, jackals, even desperate poachers sometimes prowled the outskirts at night. He hated the idea of staying exposed, but moving the cub too soon could undo everything. He glanced at the lion. The big cat's ears flicked, responding to sounds Ethan couldn't even hear. That alone made Ethan breathe easier. He wasn't alone in this strange battlefield. He reached for his flashlight and checked the battery, full. He thought about starting the truck, But even the sound of the engine might trigger the lion's protective instincts. Besides, the cub needed rest more than motion. Ethan settled back into the seat, keeping the door slightly open to monitor the lion's mood. Minutes passed, then an hour. The desert grew colder, the stars beginning to reveal themselves like pinpricks of silver torn through the fading sky. The lion remained motionless. Ethan cleared his throat softly. "You know, I didn't expect my day to go like this." He smiled faintly at the absurdity of talking to a lion. "But I'm glad you didn't walk away. I'm glad you stayed." The lion didn't react, but there was something calming about acknowledging the impossible truth out loud. Ethan leaned his head back and closed his eyes briefly. A faint sound snapped them open again. The cub moved. Not weakly this time, but with effort. Its paws stretching out, its body rolling slightly to get comfortable. It let out a soft, raspy chirp. Ethan's chest tightened with relief. "That's a good sign," he whispered. He dripped another bead of water onto the cub's tongue. It swallowed with more strength than before. Ethan smiled, tension easing from his shoulders. But then, outside, the lion stood up abruptly. Ethan stiffened. The lion's ears pinned forward, body angled toward the darkening dunes. Ethan followed his gaze. The wind picked up, carrying the distant echo of something Ethan didn't like. Footfalls. Not animal. Not light. Heavy. Purposeful. Human. Ethan's stomach dropped. He reached for his binoculars, peering through the gap in the door. The last of the sunlight caught the outline of two figures cresting the ridge, strangers, carrying rifles slung across their shoulders. Ethan's pulse spiked. Poachers. He'd heard rumors of them in this region, men who targeted lions for teeth, bones, trophies. They hunted quietly, illegally, slipping past ranger patrols and disappearing into the sand like ghosts. And now they were here. Too close. Too armed. The lion growled, a deep, thunderous vibration that rolled across the valley like distant thunder. The strangers paused, lifting their binoculars. Ethan ducked down, heart thundering in his chest. He felt the weight of the cub in his arms and knew with unsettling certainty, if those men spotted the lion, they'd shoot him. If they saw the cub, they'd take it. And if they saw Ethan with both, they'd silence him too. The lion stepped forward, placing his massive body directly between the truck and the strangers. His mane bristled, his tail lashed the sand. No fear. No hesitation. Ethan whispered, "Don't do it. Don't go towards them." But the lion didn't move closer. He simply stood, a living shield. The poachers scanned again, murmured something to each other, then shifted their direction slightly, walking along the ridge instead of descending. Ethan held his breath, praying the fading light would hide the lion's shape. Minutes passed slowly. Eventually, the strangers moved past the valley and disappeared into the growing night. Ethan let out the breath he'd been holding. He turned to the lion, his voice cracking slightly. "You protected us. You actually protected us." The lion didn't look back at him, but Ethan didn't need him to. He understood. Tonight, the trust was mutual. The night settled fully now, stars bright as scattered diamonds. Ethan adjusted in his seat, pulled a thin emergency blanket around himself, and checked the cub one more time. Its breathing was borderline steady now, its paws curling with more life. He rested his hand lightly on the cub's back. "We'll make it through the night," he said softly. "All three of us." Outside, the lion lay beside the truck, eyes open, standing guard beneath a sky vast enough to swallow them whole. And for the first time since the day began, Ethan felt safe. Not because the desert had grown kinder, but because a father lion had chosen to stand with him.
The lion stepped closer, closer than ever before, until his face hovered inches from Ethan's. Ethan didn't move, didn't breathe. His heart pounded like a drum in his throat. The lion sniffed him, once, twice. Then he stepped back, not in retreat, in permission. Ethan understood. The lion was letting him take the cub to the ranger station, to safety. The weight of that trust nearly brought Ethan to his knees. He lifted the cub carefully, placing it in a nest of towels on the passenger seat. He started the engine slowly, praying the sound wouldn't snap the fragile truce. The lion flinched just once, then steadied, pacing beside the truck. Ethan rolled down the window, voice shaking. "I'll bring him back. I swear I will." The lion held his gaze, eyes burning in the morning light. And then he let Ethan drive. The cub whimpered softly from the seat beside him. Ethan pressed the accelerator. The desert opened before them. Behind him, a father's silhouette grew smaller, yet somehow more powerful with every passing second. The road back toward the ranger station was barely a road at all, just a fractured stretch of compacted sand shaped by years of sun, wind, and the occasional patrol truck. Ethan gripped the steering wheel tighter as he navigated the uneven terrain, each bump sending a tremor through his already exhausted arms. The cub lay beside him, wrapped in towels, its breathing thin but steady. Every few seconds, Ethan glanced over, terrified he'd suddenly see stillness. Behind him, a trail of dust lingered in the morning air like a warning. He didn't dare look in the rearview mirror more than necessary, not after seeing the silhouettes on the ridge. He pressed lightly on the accelerator, careful not to jostle the cub. "Hang on, little guy. Help is close. Just stay with me." The desert widened before him, endless, sunlit, treacherous. But as the station drew nearer, something in the air shifted. He could feel it, a heaviness, a static tension that crawled between his shoulder blades. Then he saw them. Two figures moving behind a dune on his right, slow, purposeful. He exhaled shakily. "They're tracking us." The poachers weren't riding motorbikes or using loud vehicles. They were approaching on foot, which was far worse. Silent, patient. They knew the desert well enough to cut across channels and shadow lines quicker than a truck could safely maneuver. Ethan tightened his grip on the wheel. "Not today," he whispered. The cub stirred, letting out a weak, breathy sound. It wasn't quite a cry, more like a soft plea. Ethan reached over, placing a steadying hand on its back. "I've got you." The truck bounced sharply as the earth dipped unexpectedly. Ethan winced, then froze. Movement! To the left this time. The poachers had flanked him. He pressed the gas, but not too hard. The cub couldn't take violent shaking. His heart thudded painfully as he forced himself to stay calm. Years of rescue work had trained him to think clearly under pressure, but nothing compared to outrunning armed men across open desert while carrying the fragile life of a lion cub. He looked ahead, and the desert seemed to swallow the road.
The ranger station was still minutes away, minutes too long. A sudden glint flashed in the side mirror, a reflection off metal. A rifle. They were close enough for sunlight to catch their weapons. Ethan's pulse slammed in his throat. God, no. He could hear Emma's voice in his mind. "Dad, breathe."
He remembered those hospital nights, the way he'd panicked until she'd calmly reminded him to inhale, exhale, and stay grounded. Funny how trauma often became its own survival manual. He inhaled now, exhaled, and forced his brain to sharpen. He shifted the truck gently but deliberately toward an old, dried-out riverbed he knew cut east of the station. The path was rough, but it offered dips and ridges, natural cover, a place where he might lose the line of sight from the poachers, at least temporarily. "You and me, buddy, we're not dying in this desert." The cub's ear twitched. The truck descended into the shallow gully, sand tightening around the tires. Ethan drove carefully, every nerve alert and burning. The canyon walls, small but enough, rose on both sides, breaking visual contact with the ridge. But only for a moment. Just long enough to buy time. He needed something more, a way to throw the poachers off entirely. His eyes scanned the landscape, the way a man considers every option when his life hinges on seconds. He spotted an outcrop of stone ahead, a fork in the riverbed. One path curved toward the station, the other curved toward a maze of dunes. If he made the wrong choice, he'd get trapped. If he made the right one, he could live. The cub made a faint noise, pressing its nose weakly against the towel. Ethan's heart clenched. Okay, we do this smart. He took the left fork, toward the dunes. The gully narrowed, the walls climbing higher. Perfect. Exactly what he needed. He slowed the truck, checked the rear one more time, then reached into the console. He grabbed an emergency flare, one he prayed he wouldn't need. Flares were meant to signal for rescue, or to mislead those who meant harm. He cracked it, waited for the hiss and burst of fire, then tossed it into the right-hand fork of the riverbed. A trail of bright red smoke burst upward, visible even over the canyon's lip. A decoy, something for the poachers to chase. Ethan jammed the truck into gear and took the left trail again, climbing out of the gully slowly, quietly. If he survived today, he thought wryly, he might finally get around to comparing car insurance quotes like he'd been putting off for a year. As he crested the dune, he risked a glance back. Two figures sprinted into the wrong fork, rifles raised, moving fast. His plan worked. But he couldn't celebrate. Not yet. The cub let out a weak rasp, its tiny body trembling. "Hang on," he breathed. "We're close now." 5 minutes later, though it felt like an hour, the first edge of the ranger station appeared. A squat concrete structure nestled behind a barrier of acacias and fencing. A place built to withstand everything from sandstorms to wild predators. For the first time since dawn, Ethan let himself hope. He pulled up to the gate, honked twice, and the ranger on duty, Marcus, burst from the watchpost, eyes wide. "Ethan, what the hell?" "No time," Ethan said, lifting the cub. "He's dying." Marcus stared, stunned. "Where's the father?" "Back in the desert," Ethan's voice shook. "And poachers are out there too." Marcus swore under his breath and hit the emergency buzzer. The gate opened. Ethan carried the cub inside, and as he did, he swore he felt the faintest flutter of strength beneath its skin. Inside the treatment room, Ethan placed the cub on a heated mat. Marcus grabbed IV supplies, calling for 2 more rangers. The room buzzed with urgency. Gloves snapped on, equipment clicked and beeped. Saline dripped with its soft, life-giving rhythm. Ethan stood back, chest heaving, as the cub received its first proper medical care. But something gnawed at him. He moved to the window. Across the desert, faint and distant, a silhouette stood atop a dune. The father lion, motionless, watching, waiting. Ethan pressed his hand to the glass. "I'll bring him back," he whispered. Behind him, Marcus said, "We'll keep the cub alive, Ethan, I promise." And Ethan believed him. But he also knew this wasn't over. Not with poachers still hunting. Not with a father waiting for a miracle. Not with fate tying all 3 of their lives together now tighter than ever.
The lion stepped closer, closer than ever before, until his face hovered inches from Ethan's. Ethan didn't move. didn't breathe. His heart pounded like a drum in his throat. The lion sniffed him once, twice. Then, he stepped back, not in retreat, in permission. Ethan understood. The lion was letting him take the cub to the ranger station, to safety. The weight of that trust nearly brought Ethan to his knees. He lifted the cub carefully, placing it in a nest of towels on the passenger seat. He started the engine slowly, praying the sound wouldn't snap the fragile truce. The lion flinched just once, then steadied, pacing beside the truck. Ethan rolled down the window, voice shaking. "I'll bring him back. I swear I will." The lion held his gaze, eyes burning in the morning light. And then, he let Ethan drive. The cub whimpered softly from the seat beside him. Ethan pressed the accelerator. The desert opened before them. Behind him, a father's silhouette grew smaller, yet somehow more powerful with every passing second. The road back toward the ranger station was barely a road at all, just a fractured stretch of compacted sand shaped by years of sun, wind, and the occasional patrol truck. Ethan gripped the steering wheel tighter as he navigated the uneven terrain, each bump sending a tremor through his already exhausted arms. The cub lay beside him, wrapped in towels, its breathing thin but steady. Every few seconds, Ethan glanced over, terrified he'd suddenly see stillness. Behind him, a trail of dust lingered in the morning air like a warning. He didn't dare look in the rearview mirror more than necessary, not after seeing the silhouettes on the ridge. He pressed lightly on the accelerator, careful not to jostle the cub. "Hang on, little guy. Help is close. Just stay with me." The desert widened before them, endless, sunlit, treacherous. But as the station drew nearer, something in the air shifted. He could feel it. A heaviness, a static tension that crawled between his shoulder blades. Then, he saw them. Two figures moving behind a dune on his right. Slow, purposeful. He exhaled shakily. "They're tracking us." The poachers weren't riding motorbikes or using loud vehicles. They were approaching on foot, which was far worse. Silent, patient. They knew the desert well enough to cut across channels and shadow lines quicker than a truck could safely maneuver. Ethan tightened the grip on the wheel. "Not today," he whispered. The cub stirred, letting out a weak, breathy sound. It wasn't quite a cry, more like a soft plea. Ethan reached over, placing a steadying hand on its back. "I've got you." The truck bounced sharply as the earth dipped unexpectedly. Ethan winced, then froze. Movement. To the left this time. The poachers had flanked him. He pressed the gas, but not too hard. The cub couldn't take violent shaking. His heart thudded painfully as he forced himself to stay calm. Years of rescue work had trained him to think clearly under pressure, but nothing compared to outrunning armed men across open desert while carrying the fragile life of a lion cub. He looked ahead, and the desert seemed to swallow the road. The ranger station was still minutes away, minutes too long. A sudden glint flashed in the side mirror, a reflection off metal. A rifle. They were close enough for sunlight to catch their weapons. His pulse slammed in his throat. God, no. He could hear Emma's voice in his mind. "Dad, breathe." He remembered those hospital nights, the way he'd panicked until she'd calmly reminded him to inhale, exhale, and stay grounded. Funny how trauma often became its own survival manual. He inhaled now, exhaled, and forced his brain to sharpen. He shifted the truck gently but deliberately toward an old dried-out riverbed he knew cut east of the station. The path was rough, but it offered dips and ridges, natural cover. A place where he might lose the line of sight from the poachers, at least temporarily. "You and me, buddy.
dying in this desert. The cub's ear twitched. The truck descended into the shallow gully, sand tightening around the tires. Ethan drove carefully, every nerve alert and burning. The canyon walls, small but enough, rose on both sides, breaking visual contact with the ridge. But only for a moment. Just long enough to buy time. He needed something more. A way to throw the poachers off entirely. His eyes scanned the landscape, the way a man considers every option when his life hinges on seconds. He spotted an outcrop of stone ahead, a fork in the riverbed. One path curved toward the station, the other curved toward a maze of dunes. If he made the wrong choice, he'd get trapped. If he made the right one, he could live. The cub made a faint noise, pressing its nose weakly against the towel. Ethan's heart clenched. Okay, we do this smart. He took the left fork, toward the dunes. The gully narrowed, the walls climbing higher. Perfect. Exactly what he needed. He slowed the truck, checked the rear one more time, then reached into the console. He grabbed an emergency flare, one he prayed he wouldn't need. Flares were meant to signal for rescue, or to mislead those who meant harm. He cracked it, waited for the hiss and burst of fire, then tossed it into the right-hand fork of the riverbed. A trail of bright red smoke burst upward, visible even over the canyon's lip. A decoy. Something for the poachers to chase. Ethan jammed the truck into gear and took the left trail again, climbing out of the gully slowly, quietly. If he survived today, he thought wryly, he might finally get around to comparing car insurance quotes like he'd been putting off for a year. As he crested the dune, he risked a glance back. Two figures sprinted into the wrong fork, rifles raised, moving fast. His plan worked. But he couldn't celebrate. Not yet. The cub let out a weak rasp, its tiny body trembling. Hang on, we're close now, Ethan breathed. 5 minutes later, though it felt like an hour, the first edge of the ranger station appeared. A squat concrete structure nestled behind a barrier of acacias and fencing. A place built to withstand everything from sandstorms to wild predators. For the first time since dawn, Ethan let himself hope. He pulled up to the gate, honked twice, and the ranger on duty, Marcus, burst from the watchpost, eyes wide. Ethan, what the hell? No time, Ethan said, lifting the cub. He's dying. Marcus stared, stunned. Where's the father? Ethan's voice shook. Back in the desert, and poachers are out there too. Marcus swore under his breath and hit the emergency buzzer. The gate opened. Ethan carried the cub inside, and as he did, he swore he felt the faintest flutter of strength beneath its skin. Inside the treatment room, Ethan placed the cub on a heated mat. Marcus grabbed IV supplies, calling for 2 more rangers. The room buzzed with urgency. Gloves snapped on, equipment clicked and beeped. Saline dripped with its soft, life-giving rhythm. Ethan stood back, chest heaving, as the cub received its first proper medical care. But something gnawed at him. He moved to the window. Across the desert, faint and distant, a silhouette stood atop a dune. The father lion, motionless, watching, waiting. Ethan pressed a hand to the glass. I'll bring him back. Behind him, Marcus said, We'll keep the cub alive, Ethan. I promise. And Ethan believed him. But he also knew this wasn't over. Not with poachers still hunting. Not with a father waiting for a miracle. Not with fate tying the 3 of their lives together now, tighter than ever.
The night settled over the ranger station like a heavy curtain, thick and unmoving.
The desert's daytime heat vanished, leaving behind a cold that seeped through the concrete walls and nipped at Ethan's fingers. He stood beside the treatment table, arms folded tightly, watching the cub's chest rise and fall under the soft glow of a medical lamp. The IV dripped steadily, each drop a reminder that time was both a savior and a threat. Marcus entered quietly, boots barely making a sound on the tiled floor. "His vitals are stabilizing," he murmured. "If he makes it until dawn, he'll have a real shot." Ethan nodded, though worry still carved lines into his face. "Good. He's a fighter." Marcus hesitated. "But you need to know something. The poachers, they're still out there. We picked up movement on the thermal cameras an hour ago." Ethan stiffened. "How close?" "Not close enough to breach the station," Marcus said, "but close enough to make me uneasy." Uneasy didn't begin to describe it. The station was strong, but nothing in the desert was unbreakable. Not gates, not walls, not the fragile line between life and death. Ethan rubbed his forehead, his exhaustion sinking deeper than bone. He thought about calling his insurance company, finally dealing with the health plan issues he'd been ignoring, but the idea felt ridiculous. The only coverage that mattered tonight was the thin layer of protection keeping the cubs safe. Outside, the wind moaned across the sand, sweeping past the windows in long, ghostly strokes. The desert was awake, restless, shifting, and somewhere out there, the father lion prowled in the darkness, searching for the cub he thought he'd lost. Ethan stepped outside for air, pulling the door closed behind him. The night sky unfolded above, a basin of stars shimmering so clearly it felt like he could reach up and pinch one between his fingers. The station's floodlights cast long slices of brightness across the ground, illuminating the fence line and the acacia trees shifting gently in the cold breeze. Then he saw it, a shadow. Tall, majestic, unmistakably lion. The father stood just beyond the light, a massive silhouette against the sand. I froze, breath caught in my chest. The lion's mane lifted slightly in the wind, and its eyes, two faint glimmers, locked onto me with unwavering intensity. For a moment, neither of us moved. Neither dared to shift, as though the ground beneath us might break from the slightest tremor. I swallowed. "You found us," I whispered, though no one else could hear. The lion stepped forward, slow, deliberate, until its paws touched the edge of the light. It didn't growl. It didn't bare its teeth. It simply stood there, breathing heavily, muscles tense but controlled. And I, surprisingly, felt no fear, only a deep, strange connection, like I was standing before a grieving father at a hospital door. Marcus rushed out behind me. "Ethan, back inside." "Wait," I said softly, raising one hand. "He's not attacking." "That's still a wild lion," Marcus hissed. "Let's not test his mood." But I shook my head. He followed us. He could have attacked the truck. He didn't. He's here because of the cub. Marcus faltered, torn between protocol and instinct. The lion moved again, 2 steps forward, then lowering himself onto his haunches. The pose wasn't aggressive. It was almost pleading, watching, waiting. A father outside a nursery window, unable to cross the line, but refusing to leave. Ethan's chest tightened. He knows his cub is here. The words felt heavy, real, as if speaking them brought something ancient and unspoken into the space between man and beast. A quiet buzz crackled from the station's intercom speaker.
Thermal shows no other movement, a ranger's voice came through. No poachers for at least half a mile. Marcus exhaled. Good. Last thing we need is those men showing up while a full-grown lion is camped at our doorstep. Ethan didn't take his eyes off the father lion. He's waiting for news. He deserves that much. Marcus gave him a long, troubled look. You want to talk to him like he understands English? I don't know what he understands, but I know what it feels like to wait for someone you love to survive. The memory of Emma's hospital bed rushed back with brutal clarity. Monitors beeping, nurses hurrying, Ethan praying silently in a dark corridor. He knew exactly what was in that lion's heart. The fear, the hope, the torment of helplessness. A sudden rustle drew their attention. The cub, still weak, let out the softest cry from inside the treatment room, a broken, breathy little sound. The father lion's head snapped up, his ears twitched, his entire body tensed. He recognized the voice. Ethan's breath hitched. He heard him. The lion rose, powerful muscles rippling beneath his thick mane. But instead of charging, he paced along the fence, slowly, methodically, circling toward the treatment room window. Ethan followed from inside the gate, heart pounding, watching the lion press closer until he was only a few feet from the glass. Inside the room, the cub cried again, weak but alive. The father lion leaned in, touching his nose to the window pane. The moment was silent, sacred. A bond reconnected through a wall of glass and human intervention. Ethan felt tears prick the corners of his eyes. He knows his cub isn't gone. Marcus stood beside him, awestruck. I've never seen anything like this. No one has, Ethan murmured. This is something else. But the moment didn't last. A sudden crack echoed distantly across the desert. Both men spun toward the sound. The father lion snapped his head up, ears rigid. Marcus cursed. Gunshot! The poachers are close. Ethan's stomach plunged. They're coming for the cub. Marcus ran for the gate controls. We need to lock everything down. Ethan stayed still for a moment, staring at the lion, at the raw, fierce resolve burning in its eyes. The desert wasn't done with them. Not yet. Not even close. And tomorrow, when dawn broke, the line between man, beast, and danger would collapse into something none of them could predict.
Dawn crept over the desert like a whispered promise, brushing soft gold across the dunes and pushing back the shadows of the long, tense night. Ethan had barely slept. Neither had Marcus or the Rangers. They'd taken shifts guarding the station, scanning every ridge for movement, listening for the crunch of boots or the crack of rifles. But the poachers never came close enough to strike. Not yet. What did come, what stayed, was the father lion. He hadn't left his post by the treatment room window. All night he'd paced, sat, listened, and leaned into the glass whenever the cub stirred. Ethan had watched him through the blinds, struck by how grief, hope, and instinct could intertwine so tightly that the animal seemed almost human in his devotion. By sunrise, the cub's breathing had grown stronger. His paws twitched, his eyes fluttered open for seconds at a time. Marcus checked the monitors and exhaled. He made it through the night. That alone is a miracle. Ethan let out a shaky laugh. He wants his dad. Marcus raised an eyebrow. You're planning to just open the door and let a lion walk into the clinic? I don't know what I'm planning. I just know the father deserves to see him properly. Before Marcus could argue, the cub let out a soft, rasping cry, louder than the night before, but still fragile. The sound cut through the room like a shard of light. Ethan instinctively scooped the cub into his arms, cradling him against his chest, the small body warm and trembling. The father lion reacted instantly. A deep, rumbling call rolled from his chest, low, resonant,
powerful. Not a threat, a summons, a plea, a father calling his child home. Ethan stepped toward the window. The lion's massive head lifted, eyes blazing with a mix of desperation and recognition. For a moment, man and lion stared at each other through the glass, linked by the tiny life Ethan held in his arms. Ethan, Masad, Marcus, opened the outer gate. Marcus stared at him like he'd lost his mind. "You're out of your Ethan, that's a full-grown male lion. He could rip through you before we could even lift a rifle." "He won't." Ethan's voice didn't waver. "He knows I saved his cub." Marcus cursed under his breath. "Ethan, I am begging you, think about your daughter, I am thinking about her." He swallowed hard. "She taught me something. When you love someone, you fight for them. You don't wait, you don't hesitate. And this lion, he's doing exactly that." Marcus closed his eyes, pinched the bridge of his nose, and muttered, "If you get yourself killed, I'm telling your insurance company you did something stupid." Despite the fear gripping him, Ethan cracked a tiny smile. Fair. After what felt like a lifetime, Marcus hit the control switch. The outer gate slid open with a groan. The lion stiffened, watching every movement, muscles taut. Ethan stepped outside, slow and steady, the cub held securely against his chest. His feet touched the sand, cool from the night, but warming quickly under the newborn sun. The wind carried the faint dirt and grass scent of the desert, a scent the cub recognized. He shifted, weakly lifting his head, and the lion stood motionless. Ethan approached until only 10 yards separated them, then 8, then 5. Marcus whispered hoarsely from behind the fence, "Ethan, stop right there!" Ethan didn't. He knelt in the sand, lowering himself until he was small, non-threatening. The cub whimpered, a thin, wavering sound loaded with ancient instinct. The lion's ears twitched, his tail flicked, his chest rose sharply. And then, the king of the desert stepped forward. Slow, powerful, majestic. Ethan held his breath as the lion closed the distance, each step measured. When the animal finally reached him, he felt the tremor of fear threaten to paralyze him. But the lion didn't look at him. He looked at his cub. Ethan extended his arms, offering the small bundle. The lion bent his massive head, nose brushing the cub with a gentleness that seemed impossible. He inhaled deeply, letting out a rumbling exhale, half grunt, half purr. The cub responded, weakly nudging against his father's muzzle.
For a moment, everything else, the poachers, the fear, the desert's dangers, fell away. It was just a father and his child. Ethan let his hands fall slowly, backing away inch by inch. The lion didn't follow him. His entire focus was on the cub, now nestled between his enormous paws, protected by a mane that shielded the fragile body from the wind. Marcus whispered from afar, "I can't believe what I'm seeing." "Neither can I," Ethan breathed. And then the unbelievable happened. The lion turned his head, not aggressively, not defensively, but with a deliberate, unmistakable movement, locking eyes with Ethan. A silent acknowledgement. A thank you, spoken without a single human word. Ethan felt a sting behind his eyes. "You're welcome," he whispered. The lion lingered a moment more, then lifted the cub carefully in his jaws, the way only a parent could do without causing pain. He began walking toward the open desert, each step echoing with power and purpose. The rangers watched in stunned silence as the pair moved farther and farther across the sand, the rising sun casting long shadows behind them. The father lion stopped once on a distant dune,
turning his majestic head toward the station, toward Ethan. Then he vanished beyond the ridge. For several minutes, no one spoke. Finally, Marcus clapped a trembling hand on Ethan's shoulder. "You realize you just hand-delivered a lion cub to one of the most dangerous predators on the planet, right?" Ethan let out a long, shaky breath. "Yeah, that was insane." "Probably, but it was..." Marcus shook his head. "It was the most extraordinary thing I ever witnessed." Ethan looked toward the dunes, his heart both heavy and full. He just wanted his family back. A soft wind swept across the station, stirring the sand and carrying away the last traces of the long night. He breathed it in, feeling a peace he hadn't known in years. The desert had shown him something few people ever got to see. Love, instinct, survival, loyalty, all woven together in a way no camera could truly capture. But he still raised it anyway. Not for money, not for fame, but to honor the story. A lion father who did the unbelievable. And a man who stepped into danger not for a headline, but for hope. Ethan clicked the shutter, and the desert kept the rest.